Have you ever found yourself, nodding along to something, feeling this real pull, even when deep down maybe something feels a bit off? What is it that makes certain ideas just so sticky, so incredibly persuasive, that they seem to sort of bypass our rational thinking entirely?
Today, we're peeling back the layers on, the art and the science of manipulation. We're going to look at its history, which is surprisingly long, uncover the psychological triggers that make us all a bit vulnerable, and explore the really important ethical lines, especially when we're talking about conversations aiming for genuine understanding.
Absolutely. And our mission today is to arm you with the insights you need. We want to help you understand why manipulation can be effective, how you can maybe spot its different forms, and crucially, how to navigate this stuff and protect yourself and others too, when we're all trying to get closer to the truth.
Okay, let's unpack this then. This whole idea of strategically shaping thoughts or actions. It's not new, right? Where does this rabbit hole even begin?
Well, you can trace it way back. Seriously, back to classical Greece. You find these figures called the Sophists. These were essentially professional teachers of rhetoric, persuasive speaking. They literally sold their skills. They famously taught how to make the weaker case appear the stronger. So they really established rhetoric as a craft, a powerful tool, often kind of detached from objective truth. It was more about winning the argument.
Wow, okay, so right from the start, it's skill for sale, influence as the goal, not necessarily truth. It's fascinating, actually, that basic idea. It evolved in Roman and medieval times. You see this blend starting to happen, rhetorical skill mixed with, moral authority. Think of someone like Cicero in Rome, codifying the rules for powerful speeches. Mm-hmm. Or later, religious leaders in the medieval period refining these really strong emotional appeals about sin, salvation, things like that in sermons. The techniques were there, but now wrapped in this powerful moral or spiritual purpose, guiding people through these deeply held beliefs.
Right. And then things must have shifted massively with the early modern era, especially with the printing press coming along. That must have just amplified everything. What happened then?
Oh, absolutely. The printing press was a huge game changer for scale. Suddenly, political pamphleteering just exploded. It allowed these emerging nation states to, really for the first time, systematically play on fear of the other, usually to consolidate their power. So persuasion wasn't just in the town square or the church anymore. It went wide. A societal level of message control started to appear.
And if the printing press scaled it up, I guess the 20th century really weaponized it. Thinking about the industrial era, World War I, what shifts did we see then?
That's when governments really got into the mass manipulation game in a big way. You saw the rise of official propaganda ministries. They were churning out posters, using cinema, pushing these often shocking atrocity narratives, all on an unprecedented scale. It really demonstrated how a state could systematically shape the thoughts and feelings of entire populations. Quite chilling, really, the effectiveness of it.
And then after World War II, it feels like the focus shifted maybe more towards commercial interests. I'm thinking of figures like Edward Bernays, the whole PR industry taking off.
You're right. Bernays, often called the father of public relations, he really took those wartime propaganda techniques and, commercialized them. And then TV advertising came along and just perfected things like catchy jingles, relentless repetition. It was definitely psychological manipulation, but kind of repackaged and sold for a mass consumer audience.
Which brings us right up to today, the digital and AI era. This feels like a whole new level of complexity.
It really is. Arguably the most sophisticated stage yet. Manipulation becomes algorithmic. It's deeply personalized, often totally opaque. Think about bot networks secretly pushing certain narratives online, or micro-targeted ads that seem to know your deepest anxieties. And now we're seeing generative AI creating these sock puppets, fake online personas that can subtly nudge opinions or steer conversations without you having any idea you're not talking to a real person. Honestly, tracing it from the Sophists to AI, each big technological jump just massively amplified manipulation's reach, and its subtlety.
That historical walkthrough is really something. But the truly fascinating part, for me anyway, is how these tactics, refined over centuries, actually work on us. How do they plug into our own minds? What's the science? Why are we, susceptible?
Yeah, okay, so a really fundamental principle is cognitive fluency and repetition. There's this thing called the illusory truth effect. Basically, the more times we hear a statement, even if it's completely false, the more familiar it becomes. And our brains tend to equate that familiarity, that fluency, with truth. It feels easier to process, so we lower our critical guard. It's like a mental shortcut. Easy to think about. Must be true.
That's slightly terrifying, isn't it? How repetition alone can make something feel right. And what about the role of authority? That seems like a huge lever.
Oh, enormous. Authority and obedience. You mentioned the Milgram experiments earlier, those famous shock experiments. They showed quite starkly how ordinary people could follow orders to inflict harm, just because someone in a lab coat, a perceived authority figure, told them to. We seem to have this built-in deference to authority cues, uniforms, titles, credentials, even just confident branding, and that can be exploited.
Definitely. And that connects to other mental shortcuts, right? I know Robert Cialdini's work is huge here.
Yes, his social influence heuristics. Cialdini identified, I think it's 7 key principles now that reliably influence us. Things like reciprocity, feeling obligated to give back when you receive something. Or consistency, wanting our actions to align with our previous statements or beliefs. Social proof, that's huge online, right? If everyone else seems to like it or believe it, we're more likely to follow along. Liking, authority we mentioned, scarcity, that limited time only, pressure and unity, feeling connected to a group. These aren't just quirks. They are predictable psychological triggers.
They really are everywhere once you start looking. And what about just bypassing reason altogether and going straight for the feelings? Emotional hijacking.
That's a very common tactic. Fear appeals, for instance. They ramp up our arousal, narrow our focus, and often make us react instinctively rather than thinking things through analytically. Or think about getting lost in a really compelling story that's sometimes called narrative transportation. When we're immersed like that, we tend to lower our defenses. We don't counter-argue as much in our heads. We're just carried away by the emotion of it.
So our critical thinking kind of takes a nap when strong emotions are involved. Is there anything happening deeper, like at the brain chemistry level? Neuromechanisms?
For sure. Many manipulative techniques cleverly exploit our brain's reward system, specifically the dopaminergic circuits. Think about the little dopamine hit you get from a like on social media or notification. That reinforces the behavior. It makes us want more of whatever triggered that pleasant little rush, often without us consciously realizing we're being conditioned or nudged in a certain direction.
Okay, so pulling this together, understanding these built-in human responses, the fluency effect, authority bias, emotional triggers, dopamine hits, it's not about feeling helpless, right? It's about awareness.
Precisely. Recognizing these patterns is incredibly empowering. It helps you notice when your own buttons might be getting pushed. It allows you to pause, take a breath, and maintain your critical thinking, even when you feel a strong emotional pull or the pressure to conform. It's about seeing the invisible nudges.
Right. So we've traced the history. We've looked under the hood at the psychology. Now, what does all this mean for conversations where the goal is actually finding truth?
Subscribing is the only way to keep the cows from learning TikTok dances. Oh, oh my God.
The stakes have been raised.
I know, it's like we have to save the world
Yeah, we have to protect the internet.
from dancing cows.
Goal is actually finding truth. The practice known as Street Epistemology, that's supposed to be about collaborative truth-seeking, isn't it?
That's a really important pivot. Yes, the core idea behind street epistemology, or SE, is to help someone explore how they know what they claim to know. What's their method for determining truth? It's done through, ideally, a respectful Socratic kind of dialogue. The real value isn't in convincing someone of your view, but in fostering genuine autonomy-preserving reflection, helping people examine their own reasoning, not steering them somewhere specific.
Okay, that distinction feels key. Genuine reflection versus being led. So how can manipulation creep in and actually threaten that goal in an SE conversation?
Well, it's a real danger because manipulative tactics directly undermine the whole point. For instance, using leading questions or framing things in a loaded way. That might look like the person is reaching insights on their own, but actually they can feel backed into a corner, which just kills trust. Or applying time pressure or using social proof, like saying, most people who think about it this way end up changing their mind. That encourages conformity, not real personal reflection. And maybe the most damaging is presenting selective evidence without being upfront about it. That just turns SE into a kind of covert persuasion mission, and it ruins the reputation for neutrality and just, honesty.
Those are really clear lines not to cross. So what are the positive principles? How can someone engaging in these kinds of dialogues ensure they stay non-manipulative and, ethical?
There are definitely guiding principles. First and foremost, transparency of intent. Be clear about what you're hoping to achieve with the conversation and get their okay to proceed. Ask for consent. Second, Doxastic openness. That means genuinely being open to revising your own beliefs. It shows it's not a one-way street where you're just trying to fix them. Third, epistemic humility. Acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. Avoid pulling rank or acting like the expert with the final word. Fourth, iterative checking. Regularly pause and ask the other person, does this still feel fair? Is this still useful for you? Give them outs. And finally, crucially, avoid high arousal triggers. Steer clear of those really fear-based examples or emotionally charged language that just short-circuits critical thought. Keep it calm, keep it focused on the reasoning.
It sounds like a recipe for, well, just better conversations in general, building real connection. What happens when SE practitioners stick to these non-manipulative principles? What are the good outcomes?
The outcomes are really positive. Firstly, you build sustainable trust. People feel respected, truly heard, and they're much more likely to engage again, maybe even recommend the approach to others. Secondly, you maintain epistemic integrity. Any shifts in belief that happen are genuinely owned by the person themselves because they reached them through their own reflection. That leads to much deeper, more stable changes. And thirdly, it ensures scalability for the method itself. A solid reputation for fairness and respect protects SE from, accusations of being some kind of sneaky conversion tactic or indoctrination. That allows for broader, more ethical adoption. And, this brings up a really practical point. How can you, listening right now, maybe apply some of these principles in your everyday chats, whether you're debating something with a friend or just trying to understand where someone else is coming from? Your journey to deeper understanding starts here. NavigatingBeliefs.com. Sign up. It's free.
So it's not just learning, it's an adventure.
Yeah, like a quest for knowledge.
We have covered a lot of ground today, wow. All the way from those ancient Greek sophists selling influence as a skill, right up to the incredibly sophisticated, almost invisible algorithmic nudges in our AI-driven world. And along the way, we've unpacked some of those surprising psychological hooks, that illusory truth thing, our deference to authority, how easily our emotions can be hijacked, all the things that make manipulation work so well sometimes.
Yeah, and what really stands out, I think, is that while manipulation might seem effective in the short term, and it's certainly pervasive, it always comes with these significant ethical costs. It chips away at people's autonomy, it twists the pursuit of truth, and it makes genuine agreement or consent really fragile. The real power, the power of genuine understanding, actually comes from deliberately not using those tactics.
So thinking about everything we've discussed in this deep dive, what really stood out to you? How might you take this understanding of manipulation, both its history and its psychology, and apply it in your own life, your own interactions, maybe online or offline? And what new questions did this spark for you about how information bombards us today, and maybe how we can all get a little better at navigating it all? Lots to think about. We really encourage you to keep reflecting and continue your own deep dives into these complex and honestly super important topics.
Until next time.